me a minute.
This is why I always work with hands on my
There you go. I love my dresses though, so yeah, I'm willing to pay the price. Same with these heels. They look cute, but they are a killer. Yes, literally are. Okay. Well, I think I am good to go. Do I look good?
Yeah.
I do, yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you this afternoon. What an amazing audience we have today, filled with so many great professionals. And well, I'm also aware, kid, that it is that time of the day where you're mentally checked out, you need some caffeine, maybe you're thinking about coffee, or I think there may be looking forward to the happy hour later. Who's looking forward to that? Yes, but I want some of your energy now, so I hope you're highly energized or heavily caffeinated, because we're about to have a fireside chat in the middle of July in hot and smoky Chicago.
Well, thank God for air conditioning, everyone.
Yes, I am happy about that too. But kid, I don't know if people here read the agenda or not. In case you don't know who we are, my name is Karen Amaya, so it's Karen with an E, K-E-R-E-N, and I'm very particular with my name. Yes, I am the Global Travel Risk Manager for the British Council and an international speaker, so this feels amazing to me. But more than that, I am delighted to be here with Kit Bartels, who is a senior recruiter for SI Placement Consultants. They're a leading recruitment firm within the security industry. So give her an applause, please. Now, before we start, Kit, I have a confession to make to this lovely audience. Should I tell them about the 2 missions I am on here today?
Well, I was sort of hoping you might not, but
You know me already. Poor kid, she knows I'm very open and I can't help myself. So besides getting you to think about your career growth and visibility and personal brand, I am on a mission to convince Kid here to dance before this conference is over. You're looking for that. Yes, yes, yes.
and I'm here to tell you it's never happened. We're clearly the odd couple. Go ahead, Karen.
Well, Kid, I still have 20 minutes, and I hope I can convince you. It's not my first rodeo convincing executives, actually. But if I cannot convince her, I hope I can convince you to reassess the way you've been looking at your careers and your personal brand and visibility. So let's do this.
I'm ready. Let's go.
Finally, right?
Please,
Yeah.
move on. No dancing.
So the market is changing and roles are consolidating. That only means that competition is increasing. So what can we do to actually stand out in a world full of competent people like all of you in this room today? And we're not here to give you those LinkedIn tips. You can find a lot online already, maybe more than you want to find, and that's actually useful. So we are here to talk about 2 very common myths that many have believed for years, including myself. And let's jump to the first myth, Kid. I hope that worked. Oh, it did. I almost broke my neck, but I did check. So the first myth is that to succeed, you have to fit a certain mold. Now, Kid, you and your team have interviewed hundreds and hundreds of senior leaders. Do you actually have to look and behave in one specific way for them?
I wouldn't say that you need to behave in one specific way, but there are certainly some standards that I think are absolutely expected to be taken seriously. The first, of course, and it really goes without saying with this audience, is professionalism. But you know, I am honestly surprised on a daily basis by the LinkedIn profiles I see that sometimes aren't as professional as I think they could be. And so I think a professional headshot, for men at least a collared shirt, for those at the senior most levels, that is generally the standard. But I find that oftentimes at the junior levels might not always be the norm. So I would say following that is critical. Secondly, and I think more than anything really should be at the top of the list, is technical competence. So we're not hiring the sizzle, we're hiring the steak. So no matter how much you might self-brand yourself on your profile, if you don't have the technical skills, you're not going to make it in the door. So that's the number one attribute that we look for, initially at least, as recruiters. I think third, and this is a standard specifically for the security industry, is calm and composed persona. So when companies do personality assessments, which many do as part of the hiring process, one of the key attributes that they're actually going to be assessing for is ability to handle crises and emergencies. That's been brought up by other speakers today. And so I want to emphasize that coming off in person with that kind of demeanor when you're interviewing is absolutely critical to be taken seriously and being successful. Now the rest is a bit of a gray area. Obviously cultural fit is very fluid. And every business is looking for a different kind of person. And I think you need to know what your own personal principles and brand are at work. Some people put on a mask at work, they're fine with that, they can play the part, and then they might be somebody else outside of work. Some people can't do that. So you need to know what's right for you, and only you are going to know that. But it's really important to do research when you're job seeking and when you're looking at companies. Talk to people who've worked there, talk to people who work there currently, and if you are in an interview process, do research on who your supervisor is going to be. One of the key indicators of feeling happy and successful at work is having a supervisor who supports you and that you get along with and who you can align with in a cultural fit. So I think it's absolutely essential to know what that is. And it's also very important, and this is kind of a tougher skill, but you need to be able to modulate yourself, and that's a lot of emotional intelligence. And so you need to be able to read the room. You need to read the room in the interview, and you need to read the room when you're in the job as well. You need to be able to, you might want to come forward and just, this is myself, and this is what I think. You need to know when to pull that back, and you need to know when you can use that effectively. In the interview process, it's a kind of a fine line sometimes in terms of there's an instinct to want to just play the part to get the job. Maybe you feel desperate and you need the job. Maybe it's a huge monetary promotion. The compensation is huge, and so you're attracted and you want to take the role just for various reasons. But you need to really make sure, if your gut's telling you that it might not be the right fit, not to do that. You don't want to modulate to the point where you're not yourself anymore. An interesting story of someone, though, we just recently worked with who used, I think, emotional intelligence and modulation very successfully was someone in the banking industry. And it was a very high-powered, uptight, kind of white-collar bank in the New York metropolitan area. And the candidate who came in was interviewing with the general counsel. And one of the comments that we got as recruiters from the hiring team after that candidate interview was that when the general counsel brought up an issue that the company was facing, she said, "Oh, samesies," having had dealt with the same exact problem previously. Now, that could have totally backfired, but it actually got the person the job. The general counsel loved it. And he was like the last person I might have expected to like that kind of comment, but brought that up saying it felt authentic, it felt real, I felt like I could actually have a conversation with this person, and it felt like she actually understood where I was coming from. So don't be afraid to jump out and use something that will differentiate yourself if you think it could be to your advantage.
Very good point, and I love that distinction you were making between, yes, you want to be authentic and you want to adapt, but not become somebody else.
Yeah.
That's very important. And I think we've been told that perhaps there's only one type of personality that fits executive presence, that you can only look a certain way, speak a certain way, and lead in a certain way. But actually that might not be true. I remember earlier in my career, I was trying to become what I was repetitively told in this role that I was in. Oh, we want you to act and behave like what we expect from a safety security leader. You have to be more serious and reserved all the time, more emotionally distant. We want you to be more authoritative because you have to harden up to earn the respect here. And it just wasn't myself. Now, if this is you, if this is your essence, it's completely fine, but I felt very awkward. And I realized I was not a duck trying to become a better duck. I was a swan, actually, in the world of ducks, like the fable says. And I just needed to go out there and find my other swans to swim with. Because there is a price to pay with authenticity. And I definitely paid it that time. So later on, we had a big sector crisis in that company and some layoffs came. And of course, my leadership style did not fit in there. So I was laid off too. I lived it. And by then I thought, oh my God, what a failure. My failure. I took it very dramatic even, but I learned it early on in my career. And it was good to know that actually, no, as you said, cultural fit. I just needed to go find my swans so I could be myself and actually shine. Moderating myself, obviously. I'm not going to try to convince everyone to dance like I'm trying to get to you. But yes, so that is very important. You don't need to be everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. You just need to be comfortable with that. Do you notice this with all the candidates you interview where they try so hard to become what the company is looking that maybe they miss out on sharing something memorable, like Stacey's story?
I mean, sometimes, sure. I mean, I think if someone really wants a job, they're often willing to adapt or even try to become something they're not in order to get something they think they want. But I think, again, knowing yourself and knowing what feels right for you is something only you can decide, and that's a gut check that you need to follow.
Yes, and well, being authentic doesn't necessarily mean you have to say everything that comes to your mind. That would be a terrible career strategy, I would say, or life strategy. But no, you can adapt without losing yourself in the process. So for me, I can go and easily go to a board meeting and convince them with something I need to get done. And then I can go and do my dancing. I don't have to choose. I can be open and empathetic, and I can also be very strategic and very executive, but at the same time, I can be approachable. So one doesn't fight or contradict the other. And to give you a recent example with this whole fitting in, we've recently gone through major restructuring in my organization, and I just got promoted to a global role, and I'm not going to say, oh, just because I'm authentic. No, of course, it's a conjunction of things, but the people making those decisions already knew what it was like working with me. They knew how I communicated, they knew the results I had given already, they knew how I built relationships. And of course that mattered. So it was very important to stay true to myself in this case and just find the people that I was going to work and grow with.
Yeah, I think that's a great move.
That was an absolute great move. And with that, now I would like for us to move to our next topic. Can I check with you? How many of you think that good work speaks for itself? Yeah? Do you think good work speaks for itself? Yes and no? Yeah. So let's go to our second myth. And I hope that worked. I'm not turning again. Can you tell me that it worked? Yes? Okay, good. Good to know. So our second myth is good work speaks for itself. And kid, yes, of course good work is very important. But how do you see that with also keeping in mind visibility and reputation for candidates?
So I'm someone who's always believed that good work speaks for itself. I have a Midwestern upbringing. My parents, were like, be modest, be humble, don't brag, keep your head down. If you do a good job, you'll get noticed, recognized, promoted. In some cases, that can work out. But at the end of the day, you're your own best advocate. And if you're standing to the side, waiting to be recognized, there's a good chance you're not going to be. Because visibility is opportunity. So you really need to make sure that you're out there, but you need to do it in a way that is careful and smart. I think we all know the people who go on LinkedIn and humble brag to death and, have kind of a reputation for just constantly being out there. But I think you can find a fine line with that. I think LinkedIn can actually work to your advantage, especially when you're using it in a way where if you have a specific security incident or a case study that may have happened to you, where you can effectively tell a story about how you found a solution that might help other people learn from that specific example. It's a great medium to get out there and be a thought leader on, and I think it does get you recognized and noticed. So I think LinkedIn absolutely should be an area that's focused on. An area that both David and then Bart mentioned earlier today that I really totally agree with is also making sure you understand the business that you're in. You need to be able to speak the talk in your business enterprise to explain why security is important, how security is integrated across all elements of your enterprise, and how you're effectively making changes or keeping a program moving or strategizing a program that is helping build the business and helping the bottom line of the business. And I think if you can't do that, if you are just working on security in a corner and you're not showing how it's enterprise-wide, you're doing yourself a disservice. And you also, as Bart said, I think you've got to be able to talk to the board about that. And you need, if you are the leader of that, it's very tempting to give credit to your team or credit to the company. Take credit for it. You can take credit for it in a humble way by simply saying, I led this and my team did a great job supporting it. So don't be afraid to do that, because you need to show what you have done. You also need to show what you've done on your resume. Time and again, I see resumes where it's just duties and responsibilities. It's easy to list those, but if you're not showing what those are as accomplishments and how you've helped grow a business or save lives, then it's, you're just telling me what you've done, and you're just telling the board what you've done, and you're not actually effectively advocating. I think it goes without saying, I think we're all here because networking is so critically important. And you have to use your network not like an ATM, but as a constant in your life, right? You can't just go to it when you need it. You need to build it, maintain it, and live it. And I think you can do that through being in an association. You can be a mentor, and people will always remember the good things that you've done to help them. And people will also remember negative things. So your reputation does precede you in this industry specifically, which is very niche. People do know each other. Recruiters know reputations. So you want to maintain that as positively as possible. I think these are kind of basic points, but it doesn't hurt to kind of hear them over and over again, because I think it's easy to get busy and not think about it. So we find that executives who suddenly find themselves transitioning, restructuring, being laid off, they're placed the fastest when they have a very stable, strong network. And as we all know, and this is true, you find your next job through your network, not by randomly applying. And I would also say you should make sure you're staying in touch with recruiters. We actually just like hearing from people, even if you're not looking. Just let us know who you are. If you want, share your resume. It's helpful just to know that what you're doing and that you're out there. You just never know when an opportunity might come along. So you should always be ready for it. And we also recommend that you should really probably always keep your resume as updated as possible, because things can move quick, and if you're not there, you're going to miss the boat.
Definitely, yes. Let's keep everything updated and always be ready too. That you also shared a very good point. I think visibility is not vanity, as at times you might think. Visibility is actually clarity, because you want to help others understand what it is that you're delivering. You're adding a lot of value. Make others know. I had a senior leader early in my career, and she had this saying in Spanish. The translation to English is basically, you need to cluck like the hen for every egg that it lays, and not like the ostrich that lays big eggs, and nobody has a clue about that. Now, Phil put a lot of analogies about birds today. I don't know what it is. The swan, the hen, yes, the ducks. But that message, by then, I don't think I really lived it. And a few years ago, I had a performance review with my line manager by then, and she told me, Karen, we know you do amazing work because we hear it from everybody else, but you. Now, I need you to help us understand what you're doing, because we know you're doing it, but we don't hear it from you. So be visible. And that changed a lot for me, that moment, because I thought that silence was humility, but in that case, it was actually invisibility.
So
Yes.
it's a fine line.
There is a fine line for sure. Now, kid, we can continue talking endlessly here, but because we want to be efficient, this is a fireside chat. I would like for you to leave this audience with one message. If you wanted them to remember something, what is it that you want them to remember 2 years from now, 3 years from now? Oh, kid said that. Yeah.
No pressure, Karen.
No.
I would say be the architect of your own career. You know yourself, know what feels right for you. Have a roadmap, have a plan, have a strategy, know where you want to take the vehicle. Don't ride on anyone else's coattails. Don't wait for someone to carry you along. Know your own path. You're in the car and you're driving, and go where you want to go.
Great message. You're an architect to your career and your life, and you're driving the car. Can you give a ride to all my birds I mentioned today? Yeah.
No, a loud and dirty ride.
Yes, but they're important because I also want to leave you with two messages. So maybe if you don't feel like you're fitting that mold, you might be a swan that just needs to go out there and find your other swans so you can swim with them and grow together. You're flying there. I get very philosophical and emotional a little bit. But the other message is if you've been laying big eggs and people don't know about it, maybe it's time for you to start clucking. Because you're chicken one day, but you might be feathers the next. Thank you so much. However, before we go, I can't just let her leave without a mission update. I came with 2 missions, remember? So,
well, Karen, I know my personal brand, and I'm going to follow my heart, and I'm not going to dance.
you're not, no, she pulled that one very well.
Well, Germanic descent, unless it's the robot.
Maybe in the next conference. But you've been a great audience, and I have a tradition. I have to get a selfie with my audience, just like Alvar. So this you're doing, though.
All right.
All right. Yes.
Was I invited? I don't know.
Yes, of course. So can I get everybody to smile? And we're gonna do different shots, different angles. And actually, can I do a video with some waving hands here? And it's the World Cup, so we're gonna play some waka. Come on, give me some energy, people! Woo! Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks.
Well, I didn't think that was going to happen. To get Kit to dance, that was impressive. I was actually going to call up someone else, like, who's going to dance? I'm like, I'm not doing it.